Welcome to another Fast Tips video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I am your instructor, Richard Rost. In today's video, we're going to talk about interview questions. I've got 36 interview questions and answers for Microsoft Access, or these might also be things I might ask you in school on a test or a quiz. So I recently had one of my developer students email me asking if I could help him prepare for a job interview he is coming up for a position as an Access developer. Now, I know he's completed most of my Access Developer series, and based on the types of questions he's asked me in the past, I know he's more than qualified. But it got me thinking about the questions I would ask if I were hiring someone as an Access developer. So this is my list of 36 things to make sure you know if you want to get a job as an Access developer. Note that if you're also taking a class in school, college, high school, whatever, then you may find these questions on your exams. You're allowed to use my answers, but you've got to quote me. Remember, if you get answers only from one source, it's plagiarism. If you take them from multiple sources, it's called research. So be sure to do your research on other sites as well. Okay, for most of these questions, I'm going to give you a short answer, which teachers sometimes prefer instead of writing 3 paragraphs. And I'll also give you a link to a video on my website or an article that goes into more depth so you can conduct further research. So I'll give you the short answer here and a link to where you can learn a lot more about that topic. These questions are in no particular order. Sometimes I start writing one and 2 more questions come to mind. Also, these aren't gotcha questions. I hate those. I've taken tests before, like online tests, to see if you know what you're talking about, right? For like Excel or for Word. And they ask you crazy questions that are so out there that even someone like me with 30 years of Access experience, I've never needed to know that thing. Especially like hunting through the menu questions, right? Have you seen those before? You know, like in what Access options group can you find the setting for switching to ANSI 92 database syntax, right? I mean, come on. That's something you'll very seldom ever need. And if you do need something crazy like that, just Google it, right? And by the way, the answer is the query design group. But again, that's meaningless. So these are actual real-world questions for actual production databases. And when doing the research for this video, I Googled Microsoft Access interview questions, and there were a lot of stupid questions that came up on some of these pages. And a lot of them were out of date. A lot of them were asking about web apps, which have been gone since 2013, and MDE files, which are, Access 2003. And some of them were just plain dumb. And finally, I did not include any Visual Basic questions in this video. If you guys want to see me put together a separate video on VBA questions, I'd be happy to do so. Post a comment down below and let me know. So this all has to do pretty much with just normal Access database development, not VBA. Okay, you ready? So I'm going to give you the question first and read it and give you a second or 2 to answer. Pause the video if you want to. And then I'll flash the answer and read that, and you can see if you knew what you were talking about, right? Okay, here we go. All right, question 1's the simple one, and everyone always gives a different answer for this, but what is Microsoft Access? All right, take a second thinking about it. Pause the video if you have to. All right, got your answer? Okay. Access is a relational database application. Relational is important because it's relationships between multiple tables as opposed to a flat file database or something like Excel. It includes a graphical development interface in addition to a desktop-based database engine. It is not a database server, but it can be used as a front end for a server-based application like SQL Server. Basically, it gives you all the tools to make your database and to work with the database locally or on a small network, right? And it can be used to connect to a bigger back-end database. Want to learn more? Watch my What is Microsoft Access video. You'll find a link to this and all the other videos I'm going to mention down below in the description below the video. Okay, question 2. What are the parts of an Access database? We've got tables that are used to store data, queries used to display data in different ways, right? You can sort, add criteria, that kind of stuff, and to manipulate data, your action queries, right? Update, append, delete, those kind of things. Forms are used to create an on-screen user environment for data entry and editing, and your menus and stuff like that, right? Reports, used for printing data or sending data to other people in a printable format, like a PDF file. Macros, used for automating repetitive tasks, although I pretty much don't ever use them. And modules, which give you the full power of the Visual Basic for Applications language. Those are the major components of an Access database. Yeah, there's other stuff, but these are the big six. Want to learn more? Parts of a database. Question 3. What is the importance of relationships between tables? Why do you want them? What are they good for? Tables should be properly relational to minimize errors, increase efficiency, and eliminate duplicate data. This involves the proper use of ID fields, typically auto numbers, so that each record has a primary key field, and other tables that need to refer to the records in this table store that ID as a foreign key. Lots more information on relationships in my relationships video. This is a big one. All right, if you're going for an Access job or taking a course, learn relationships. The most important thing, I think, with building a good Access database. In fact, I used to wait until my expert level classes to really even start going over relationships. I just changed that. Now I start covering it in beginner level too because it is that important. Question 4. What is SQL? SQL stands for Structured Query Language. In the context of Microsoft Access, it's the language in which queries are written. You can have select, insert into, delete, and other types of queries. Now, this is not to be confused with SQL Server, which is a specific database server program by Microsoft. Okay, SQL is a language. SQL Server is a program, a database application, a database server specifically. And there are different kinds of SQL. For example, Access's SQL is slightly different from SQL Server's SQL, which I hate. There are some differences, and it drives you nuts. But you just got to learn it, okay? Want to learn more about SQL with Access? Watch this video. I talk about the basics of writing SQL statements. Question 5. Define the universe. Give 3 examples. No, I'm just kidding. Even Picard thinks that was dumb. All right, next question. The real question, number 5. What is normalization? Database normalization is organizing your fields so as to reduce data redundancy and improve data integrity. For example, you wouldn't store all of a customer's data in their orders in the order table. Fields like phone number should be stored in the customers table only. It's not usually necessary to store them in each order, right? So you got one customer, he's got 15 orders. Every one of those orders does not have to have all of the customer's information. You generally find people doing this with like Excel spreadsheets. Now, there are some exceptions, and I talk about them in my normalization video. For example, if you want to track where an order was shipped, you might copy the customer's address into each order. Okay, but that's an exception rather than the rule. And sometimes you may even want to denormalize your database for increased performance. But generally, normalization is a good thing. Here's a video that talks about it. Question 6. What is referential integrity? The most important role of referential integrity is to ensure that child records in a one-to-many relationship are not orphaned. In other words, you can't delete a customer as long as he has orders. You can cause those child records to be deleted if you delete the parent record by turning cascade deletes on, although I generally don't recommend it. Be very, very careful with cascade deletes. Okay, referential integrity means if you got an order and that order has line items in a separate table, like you should do, right? Order detail items. You can't delete the order until you first delete all the line items, right? Referential integrity will prevent that. But if you turn cascade deletes on, if you delete the order, it'll delete all the line items too, which can be dangerous. So be very careful with this setting. You can learn more about referential integrity here. Question 7. What is a many-to-many relationship? A many-to-many relationship involves 3 tables. Each record from table 1 can be related to one or more records in table 2. In order to set this up, you require a third table called a junction table. For example, you may have cars and drivers, Each car can be driven by multiple drivers, but each driver can have multiple cars. The junction table indicates which cars are related to which drivers and vice versa. Many-to-many relationships right here. Here you got drivers, their cars, and a junction table in the middle. Question 8. What's the largest file size for an Access database, and how can you overcome this limit? An Access ACCDB file is limited to a maximum of 2 gigabytes, and that's a lot of space. However, you can overcome this limitation by splitting your database into a front-end file, which includes your queries, forms, reports, and that kind of stuff, your user interface basically, and one or more back-end files, which include your tables. So theoretically, you're really only limited by the size of your hard drive. You can take multiple tables and break them up into multiple back-end files. I have my database set up that way. All right, I got my customer table in one file. I got my order table in another file because each of those are getting pretty big. And if you spread them out like that, you can attach a database to pretty much as many back-end table files as you want. Want to learn more about splitting your database? Well, there you go. Question 9. Is it possible to add user-level security to Microsoft Access back-end table files? Not really, no. It is possible to secure your front end, your user interface database, so that users cannot change your forms, modify reports, edit your VB code, and so on. Now, you can put a single database password on your back-end table, but it's the same for all users. Access hasn't had user-level security in a long time. I think 2003 was the last version that actually included user-level security. While you can encrypt or scramble the data with an algorithm, Access alone does not have user-level security anymore. Users need full rewrite access to the backend database file in order to work with the database. So if you need proper table security, your best option is to use a database server like SQL Server. Now, I do have several videos that talk about securing your database. Here's one, simple security. Start with this one. Here's one about setting a database password. And then I've got a couple seminars. One is my security seminar. It goes through everything you need to know to lock down your Access database. And then I've got this one called the encryption seminar, where I teach you how to actually scramble that data in your tables using an algorithm. So for example, if you want to store something sensitive like credit limit, salary information, credit card numbers, you can scramble that data. So even if someone does get into your tables, the information's meaningless. Question 10. When would you want to upscale your Access database to SQL Server? As previously mentioned, if you need tight data security, SQL Server is much better than Access. Another reason to upscale would be if your database is running slow over a network with multiple users. Each query in Access has to pull all of the records over the network and crunch through them, whereas with a database server, the query is processed server-side, and only the resulting set of records are transmitted over the wire. So if you've got a multi-user database set up and it's running slow, you might want to consider upgrading the backend to SQL Server. What this means in a nutshell is, let's say you've got 100,000 customers in your database and you want to see a report showing only the customers from New York. Well, an Access-only solution has to pull all 100,000 records down over the network wire, and your local computer will crunch through them all and display just the customers from New York. Whereas with SQL Server, you tell the server, hey, send me just the customers from New York, and it will then just transmit to you the, let's say, 100 or so that are from New York. And so it's much, much faster that way when you're processing over a network. If you want to learn more about SQL Server, check this seminar out. It's my Access SQL Server Online. I show you how to set up an SQL Server online on a web server and connect your Access database to it. So anybody, anywhere in the world using Access can get a hold of your database. What is the attachment type and when would you use it? Well, I say attachments are evil and you should never use them. Access is not designed to store images, documents, or other types of files efficiently. Instead, store the file in a folder on your computer, your PC or your server, and save a reference to the path and file name of that file in the database using a short text field. I know there's a lot of debate about this, but Access is not a file storage database. All right, it doesn't store files, images, those kinds of things very efficiently at all. It bloats your database size, and you're better off storing them in a folder on your server or on your computer, and then just storing a path to them because you can always open them up from the database with the click of a button. I got a whole page full of Access evil stuff you shouldn't do, or at least do sparingly, okay? And I'll put a link to this down below in the link section as well. This is constantly evolving. And if you want to learn how to properly display images in your forms and reports, watch this video. You don't store the images in your table, in your database. You store them in a folder, and you store the file name and path to that in your database, and it'll display it just fine. And so if you get interviewed and you get asked this question, you tell them, I said so. And if it's on a test for your school, you tell your professor, I said so. I mean, yeah, can you use the attachment? Yes, you can. If you got really, really small, like text files or a Word document, like a resume, sure, fine, okay, if you have to. All right, but I strongly recommend against it. Question 12, what is a calculated field? While there is a calculated field data type in tables, I recommend you don't use them, okay? This violates the proper rules of database normalization. Instead, use calculated fields in queries. These can be used to calculate values on the fly for results that don't need to be stored in the table. For example, an order line item may have a unit price and a quantity, and you can calculate the total for that line with simple multiplication. And you can learn how to do that here. Right? Don't save calculated values in your tables, folks. Okay? Very, very rarely do you have to do that. Only if you're doing a gigantic, set of data and you want to speed up the rate at which, those fields are sorted and searched. You might then want to store a calculated value in your table, but it's very rare that you're actually going to do that. Question 13, is it better to store a person's name in one field, called name, or two fields, first name and last name? It's always easier to put multiple fields together than it is to pull them apart. Store first name and last name separately, and you can use concatenation in a query to put them together. It's always easier to take first name and last name and smash them together than to pull those things apart. Also, don't use the word name as a field name. I see this all the time, right? Field name called name. It's a reserved word. Don't use it. Here's a video on concatenation, which is putting two strings together. And I'll also include a link down below to the reserved words list, which is in our glossary on the website. This is maintained by Alex. He does a great job. These are all the words you shouldn't use as your field names. Okay? Check it out. Question 14. What is a continuous form? A continuous form is used to show multiple records on the screen at the same time, one over the other, as opposed to a single form, which shows just one record at a time. This is a continuous form. We got one record after the other. This is a single form. We only see one record at a time. And yeah, I know some of these pictures are blurry. These are the older videos that I did, so I didn't take high-res images of the slides. I gotta do it again. Question 15. What function would I use to add months to a date field? The date add function can be used to add or subtract days, weeks, months, quarters, or years to any date value. You can also use it for time portions too, like hours, minutes, seconds. Now, for calculations only involving days, you can simply add or subtract that number from the date. Remember, in Access, the number 1 equals 1 day. So, for example, to add a week, you can just add 7 to a date value. Okay, if you want to add an hour, add 1/24. Okay, it's fractions of a day. Okay, here's a video on date add. And here's a video that talks about date math, how to add those whole days, date fractions, and so on. Question 16, what property would I likely use to ensure that all new customers start with a credit limit of $1,500? The default value property in either a table or a form can be used to set the initial starting value for new records. It does not affect existing records. Bonus question, what would you use to go through and change the values for all of the existing records? You'd use an update query, Here's a video on how to use the default value property. And here's where you can learn more about update queries. Question 17, you open a form or report and see an enter parameter value prompt. What is a likely cause of this if you're not expecting it? I get this one all the time. People email me this constantly or post it in my forums. Access is looking for a parameter value, most likely from an underlying query that the form or report is based on. Either that value is missing or something is spelled wrong. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's spelled wrong. I get people all the time that send me databases with table and field names that look like this. What is this nonsense? And they wonder why they've got it wrong in a query. Maybe they typed it out for a criteria or something, and it's just they spelled it wrong. 9 times out of 10, it's spelled wrong. All right, so be careful with that. I got a whole video dedicated to this enter parameter value problem. It happens that often. And if you don't know what a parameter value is in a query, go watch this one. Right? This is how you set up parameter queries properly with a prompt using the criteria of a field in your query. And if you don't know what query criteria are, you shouldn't be getting a job as an Access developer. Go watch this video first. Question 18. Your user wants to only print a report containing records that he manually selects. What is the easiest way to go about this? Create a yes/no field in the customer T table or whatever table it's based on. I'm assuming it's a customer report. Add a checkbox to the customer form for the user to select the records he wants to print. Then create a query with a criteria where selected equals true and build your report bound to that query. That's the easiest way to do it. Make a yes/no field in the table, right? Check on who you want to display or not, and then make a query showing only selected records, and then use your report on that. And here's a video that shows you how. Question 19. What property should I use to ensure that all phone numbers are entered in a 334 format, such as 239, 555, 1212? That property is called the input mask. You can put it in either a table or a form. For that specific mask, I would recommend 000-000-0000, which forces all 10 digits. However, if the area code is optional, if your business is mostly just local, then you can use 999 with a bunch of zeros, and 9 is optional. So you may or may not type in the 9. Want to learn about input masks? I got a video about it. Want to see it? Here you go. Question 20. You want to display a field on a form, but it's from a different table than the form is bound to. What function would you use? For example, let's say you've got a customer table and you've got a sales rep table, and you want to pull some information from that customer's sales rep and display it on the customer form. You can use the dlookup function to get a value from a different table or query to display on a single form. However, if you're using continuous forms and you're looking up values for many records, it's usually better to put the tables together in a query first and get the value from that. Try to avoid using any of the domain functions, dlookup, dmax, dsum, in a continuous form. That's lots and lots and lots of records, and it's going to slow your database down. If that's the case, use a query, pull them together, display it that way. Here's a video on dlookup. It's the granddaddy of all the domain lookup functions. Learn this one first. Question 21. You want to open a report and show only a specific record, such as the invoice for the current order. How would you do it without VBA? Answer, create a query based on the order table with a criteria that gets the order ID from the currently open form. And there it is, forms, exclamation point, order F, exclamation point, or bang, order ID. Then build a report bound to that query. Here's a video explaining how to get a value from an open form, like getting that order ID. And this video goes over that exact circumstance, how to open a report to a specific record. In this video, I show you how to do it both with and without VBA. With VBA is actually easier. It's just one line of code. You just got to know the right line of code. Question 22. Why would you want to set the field size of a short text field to anything less than 255? While in older versions of Access, this was important to save disk space and keep file sizes small, it's no longer the case. The only reason to limit the size of a short text field now is to limit the user's data entry. For example, you can prevent the user from entering more than 5 characters for a zip code. Yeah, back in the day when I first got started, Access 2.0, back in like 1994, hard disks were a lot smaller then, and at the time, Access didn't really optimize disk space as good as it does today. If you reserved 100 characters or 255 characters for every first name field, there's a lot of wasted space there because Access didn't crunch all that down. You had to compact your database and you get some of it back, but it wasn't anywhere near as good at maintaining disk space as it is today. So today it's not a problem. In fact, I routinely leave my field sizes at 255 unless I have a reason to keep them shorter. So there you go. How would you write a query criteria to show all orders between January 1st, 2022 and October 1st, 2022, assuming you want records from both January 1st and October 1st? While you could use the between keyword and say that, you'd have to be careful because if there's a time component in the order date field, you won't see those orders from October 1st after midnight. A better method is to use greater than or equal to and less than your two end dates. Because, like me, for example, in my order field, I want to know what time of the day an order came in so I could track my busy times. So it'll say, the order date is July 1st, 6:42 p.m. Well, if I do a query that says show me all of the records between June 1st and July 1st, it'll include July 1st at midnight, but it won't include that 6 p.m. order. That's why I say greater than or equal to January 1st and less than, right, October 2nd. So you don't get October 2nd at midnight, but you get everything less than that. And this, by the way, is called the ISO date standard. It's year, month, day, and I use that because I have customers and students all over the world, and this is an unambiguous date format that everyone can get behind. All right, so here's a video to watch using the between keyword when you're searching between dates and how it might give you wrong values and why. And here's a video you can go watch if you want to learn more about that ISO date format that I use. Question 24, how would you write a query criteria to show all orders from the past 30 days? All right, the last 30 days worth of orders. You'd use the date function, such as greater than or equal to date minus 30. That takes the system clock, whatever your computer's set to, and says show me all the records that are greater than or equal to date minus 30, which is 30 days ago. Go watch that video on date math to learn more about this. And remember, there's two functions. There's date and now, N-O-W, right? Now is the current date and time together. Question 25. Your client wants to track students, parents, teachers, administrators, and miscellaneous employees in his school database. Should you create a separate table for each one or one table to store them all? I recommend using one table as these are all the same type of data. They're all people. They all have pretty much the same fields, right? First name, last name, address, phone number. Most of the information about all these people are the same. Now you can use a field to indicate which type of person you are dealing with, preferably from a related person type table. So 1 is students, 2 is parent, 3 is teachers, and so on. We don't want to keep multiple tables with the same type of stuff, right? Here's another question I get all the time. Question 26. Your client deleted order ID number 101 because the customer canceled the order. Now he wants to know how he can get that 101 back so there isn't a gap in his auto numbers. What can you do? First, unless the order T table has related records, the numbers themselves are meaningless. Auto numbers are not for you. I got a whole video on this. They're for access to maintain relationships. Use a custom counter field if the client wants incrementing sequential numbers, right? Order 1, order 2, order 3, and he wants them in order. However, you can restore a deleted auto number by compacting the database if it's the last record, or by using an append query. There's a trick. But the bottom line here is that auto number doesn't matter. Those could be random numbers for all you care. It doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter to the customer. Okay? Now, if the customer has related records, so you accidentally, let's say, delete a customer record and he's got orders in the system, and you want to somehow get that customer number 6 back, you can shoehorn it in there using an append query. I got a whole video that shows you that trick. Okay, but first, watch this. Auto numbers, not for you. They're not for you. They're for access. They're for relationships. That's it. Okay? Don't worry and obsess over what those auto numbers are. If you want sequential numbering, if you want your orders to be order 1, order 2, order 3, then use this, a sequential number. Compacting and repairing, I teach about it in this video. And this is good if you delete records at the end of your table. So you're messing around, you add a bunch of temporary records. You know, you've got customers 1 through 100 in there, and then you add like 50 records just goofing around. Okay, now you're up to 151. Well, if you delete those records, compact your database, it'll reset the auto number back to what it should be, 101. Okay? But again, bottom line, it shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter to you. Here's a video on append queries. Okay, this is getting up to that trick. So if you don't know what an append query is, watch this. And this is the video that teaches you how to use an append query to shoehorn a record into a missing auto number slot. Okay, and again, you only use this if a disaster happens and you accidentally delete a record that you have related records for. Question 27. Your client has split his database. The front end and back end files are both in a server folder that everyone uses. The database locks up and corrupts routinely. What is a likely reason for this? I'm going to give you a hint. The key to this is that sentence right there. Think about it. Okay, assuming there aren't any network or PC problems, the problem is likely caused by users sharing the same front-end file. Every user should have their own copy of the front-end file on their local PC, which is attached to the back-end file on the server. When you get people that share the front end across the network too, you're much more likely to corrupt your database. I ran into a company the one time, they had like 15 people. They were all, it was properly split, but both files were in the server folder and everyone was opening them. And it just doesn't work like that. It doesn't work that way. Everyone should have a local copy of the front end on their hard drives and they attach that to the back end. And I know it's a pain to run around and update all of those front ends every time you make a design change. And that's why I wrote the Access Updater, which does it for you. You click the button and it just copies your front end and everyone else's computers. Next time they connect to the database, it'll download the updates automatically. Question 28. You have a database with a customer form, customer F, and a subform, contact F, that you want to show contacts for each customer. Like every time you talk to them, you put on, okay, talk to him on the phone about this. He stopped into the office today for that. Okay. However, the subform for contacts is showing all the records for all the customers. How do you fix this? So instead of just seeing Jim Kirk's contacts, you're seeing everybody's, including Spock's, Bones, all their contacts. The way to fix it, make sure the link master fields and link child fields properties of the subform are set properly to, in this case, it'd be customer ID, right? That's the property that says, okay, match this field in the subform with this field in the parent form. So this will show only the contacts for customer ID 6, for example. And here's my video on subforms. Here's an easy one. You build a form to edit customer records. However, when the user presses the tab key to move from one field to another, the cursor jumps all over the place between random fields. How do you fix this? You set the tab order to the desired sequence of fields. There's a little button up on the ribbon you can click on to set the tab order. You click auto order and it'll automatically order them for you, top to bottom, left to right. Or you can manually set them if you want to. This video shows you how. Set the tab order, what a tab stop is, and how to cycle through the records on the same form, or go to the next one. Question 30. Your client is trying to open the database you just emailed him. However, he's getting a security warning saying that active content has been disabled. What do? You set up a trusted location. It's under File Options Trust Center on the client's PC. Yeah, you got to walk them through it over the phone or connect in remotely or do whatever you got to do. Put any databases in that folder and you'll bypass that security warning. And here's a video on it, how to set up a trusted location. Question 31. Your client has an Excel spreadsheet containing sales figures and he wants to work with that data in Access. What's the best way to go about doing that? If the spreadsheet gets updated regularly and he wants to keep working with it in Access, he can link to the sheet. Access will treat it like a table. However, performance will be better if he imports the data directly into an Access table. Right? You can take an Excel sheet and link to it from Access, and Access will treat that sheet just like a table. But especially if it's a big sheet or it's over the network, it's going to run slow. The performance will not be great. So it's best to import that into a table, temporary table even, okay, and then work with it in Access as a table. And then if you get another one in a couple weeks, you just import that one. I talk about all that in this video about importing. And here's another video I've got on creating a linked table to an Excel sheet from Access, linking to it. Question 32, what setting would you use to ensure that no two customers in your customer T table have the same email address? You're going to index the email address field and set it to yes, no duplicates. This is something I do in my database, for example. When you set up an account, that's your email address, and it's unique to every user. Want to learn more about indexing? Watch this video. Question 33. How do you set up a lookup field in a table where you can look up a value from a list, right? Otherwise known as a drop-down list. You don't. They're evil. They're on my evil Access list, right? Table-based lookup fields were added to Access to allow novice users, or novice users, however you pronounce it, the ability to select from a list of options, right? So you could pick, for example, your state from a list of the states. Okay, the proper method is to set up a second related field, store the foreign key in your table, and use a combo box or list box to make that selection on a form. Table-based lookup fields are evil. All right, they were added there for beginners. Don't use them. Question 34. How would you prevent a user from entering a value in the credit limit field of over $1,500? I know we talked before about the default value. Well, this is to limit them to not be able to type in a value of, say, 2,000. For this, we would use a validation rule, such as between 0 and 1,500. You can learn more about validation rules right here. Question 35. In what section of a report would you want to put something that repeats on the bottom of each page? This is an easy one. That's the page footer. Remember, the page footer goes on the bottom of each page, right? And the report footer goes on the bottom once of the entire report, but it actually might display above the bottom page footer. So there's some tricks with it. And remember, we don't use page headers and page footers in forms, only reports, because the page footer of a form is designed for when you print forms, and we don't print forms. Forms are for use on the screen, right? Reports are for printing out or making PDF files. So in a form, you're always going to use the form header footer and never the page header footer. Okay? Question 36. Last question. And this is a very vague question. It's open to interpretation, but what are some of the benefits of Microsoft Access? The major benefits. Why would you want to use Access as opposed to something else? Well, Access is better at storing and working with data than spreadsheet programs or flat file databases like Excel. It's more cost-effective and easier to learn than other professional database systems. Also, Access is ODBC compliant, open database connectivity, and it makes it easy to share data online by connecting to a remote SQL server. The list of benefits goes on and on. I think literally I've got like 30 or 40 of them. There's my video on the benefits of Access. Lots and lots of different reasons why. But in a nutshell, what most employers or professors are looking for is Access is definitely better than Excel when it comes to working with data. Excel is good for analyzing small bits of data or putting charts together, that kind of stuff. But Access is much better for storing and working with large sets of data than a spreadsheet is. It's relational, so you can work between different tables. We've talked about that before. And as far as comparing Access to bigger database server systems like SQL Server, Oracle, all that, Access is more cost-effective and easier to learn. There's not as much of a learning curve. You can more rapidly deploy your application in Access than you can with SQL Server. In fact, what a lot of big companies will do is they'll start prototyping in something like Access, and then once they get it working on a small scale, then you can scale it up to a bigger server-based solution. So Access is a perfect fit for all of that stuff. Okay, one more. You ready for the bonus question? Question 37. It's for extra credit. Here we go. You ready? Who is the best Starfleet captain? Duh, it's Picard, of course. Everyone knows it's Picard, right? Come on. Come on. So there you go. There's your 36 interview questions and or test quiz school questions that I think you might get asked. If I was interviewing someone for a position, those would be the questions I'd ask. And I would specifically look for answers to things like the attachment types, storing images in databases, that kind of stuff. The things that you shouldn't do with Access. If you have any ideas for additional questions, send them to me. Post them in the comments down below. I'll put them together for my part 2 of this. If you'd like to see me do one of these interview question type things on VBA, then let me know. Post in the comments down below. If you want me to see me do something like this on Excel or Word, I'm more than happy to. But there you go. There's your Access interview questions. I hope you learned something, and I hope you get your job when you go for your interview. And I'll see you next time. How do you become a member? Click on the Join button below the video. After you click the Join button, you'll see a list of all the different membership levels that are available, each with its own special perks. Silver members and up will get access to all of my extended cut tech help videos, one free beginner class each month, and more. Gold members get access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my tech help videos, plus my code vault, where I keep tons of different functions that I use. You'll also get a higher priority if you decide to submit any tech help questions to me, and you'll get one free expert class each month after you've finished the beginner series. Platinum members get all the previous perks, plus even higher priority for tech help questions, access to all of my full beginner courses for every subject, and one free developer class each month after you finish the expert classes. These are the full-length courses found on my website, not just for Access, too. I also teach Word, Excel, Visual Basic, and lots more. You can now become a Diamond sponsor and have your name or company name listed on a sponsors page that will be shown in each video as long as you're a sponsor. You'll get a shout-out in the video and a link to your website or product in the text below the video and on my website. But don't worry, these free tech help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making more, and they'll always be free. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and post any comments you may have. I do try to read and answer all of them as soon as I can. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, which is completely free, and click on the bell icon to select all to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Make sure you click the Show More link down below the video to find additional resources and links. You'll see a list of other videos, additional information related to the current topic, free lessons, and lots more. YouTube no longer sends out email notifications when new videos are posted, so if you'd like to get an email every time I post a video, click on the link to join my mailing list. Even if you don't want to become a member, feel free to donate to my tip jar. Your patronage is greatly appreciated and will help keep these free videos coming. I got puppies to feed. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access. It's over 4 hours long, and I just updated it for 2021. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below that you can click on. And also, if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. Yep, that's all, $1, and it's free for all members of my YouTube channel at any level, even supporters. Want to have your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my tech help page on my website. You can send me your question there. While you're on my site, feel free to stop by the Access Forum. Lots of good conversations happening there. Be sure to follow my blog, find me on Twitter, and of course, YouTube. Once again, my name is Richard Ross. Thank you for watching this tech help video brought to you by accesslearningzone.com. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something today. I'll see you again soon.